So welcome again to the Fairview Community Crime Prevention Open House being held June 16th, 2021. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Constable Jake Tyerman, the Community Resource Officer from the Calgary Police Service, and Michelle Stensrud, the Director from the Fairview Community Association. Our agenda for this meeting will be introduction and presentation by myself, and then a presentation or just a few comments by Michelle about the Fairview community initiatives. And then Jake Tyerman will go over some additional statistics as well as being a good witness. We'll then open it up to questions and answers, and then we'll close the meeting, and after giving everyone who's participated a big thank you. So Fairview is located in the southeast of the city, and located, and what we have is that they're very, very close to a number of high velocity routes such as Heritage Drive and Blackfoot Trail, and as a result, there does seem to be a fair bit of speeding in the Fairview area. If you want to get in touch with your community association, their phone number and email is on the screen. And I believe that the community association is the absolute best way for a community to raise the quality of life for people that are in it. One of the things that we do every Wednesday here in my community is we actually have a get-together once per week where we bring in the food trucks and have a bit of a social occasion for everybody in the community, which is a lot of fun. So the way of sort of enjoying where you are definitely is something that the community association does a lot of stuff to make happen. So one of the things that was sent out was a crime and safety perception survey. The reason that I like to do this survey is that in addition to whether or not there is crime and safety issues within a community, there's also this idea that there's this perception of being safe. And if people do not feel safe, then that's also an issue that the Calgary Police and the community needs to deal with. The responses were really, really well done. We had a full 35 respondents from people not only that were invited to this meeting, but also from people in the general community as well. So you'll be you'll probably not be surprised to know that it is the residential break and enter, home or garage, that people perceive as a major problem, with a full 45.7% believing that it is a major problem, as well as thefts from vehicles being a major problem for 74.3% of people. And again, this is by far the largest areas of concern for people in the community. There's also a 25.7% people that believe that thefts of vehicles themselves is also a major problem. Fortunately, when we take a look at robberies and assaults, again, these are considered violent crimes and are very rare both in Fairview and surrounding communities. So we see and we don't perceive very much problems with robberies, which is the use of force to steal stuff, and assaults is basically physical attacks. And in that case, only 11% believe it's a major problem, and assaults only 3%. So what I like to do when looking at these statistics is to say, this is how the community perceives crime in their community. And then what we can do is take a look at what the actual statistics are. One of the things we also ask people is what are the problems that they see, and it comes across in about three main areas. The first one being drugs and crime. And again, it's surprising that the whole idea of residential break and enters and also vehicle break and enters are part and parcel of the drug communities, because again, what people are doing, they're going around, they're looking for the quick fix and get the easy money, and what they'll do is it'll be either one person or a group of people that will go through and blanket an entire area doing and looking for the unlocked garage or the unlocked vehicle and looking for those things that they might be able to steal, and then either fence or use for for drugs. So again, people have already mentioned that there was robberies from yards, and also seeing people that walk down or drive down alleys that are trying the garage doors and back gates. There's also a problem with homeless people and what people consider bad characters. So late night riffraff racing up and down the streets. There's a Shell station where drug deals seem to happen every night, and I'm sure Constable Tyerman will be able to speak to that. Also, when people are coming home late for work, they just notice a lot of people that don't seem to be going anywhere, but just sort of seem to be hanging out, and that may be considered suspicious activity and may be considered to be a problem. Again, something that was mentioned a lot by the comments so far is the problem with traffic safety. So a lot of people speeding on Fairmount Drive, Farrell Road, through alleys, and to the point where it's a danger in the community. And we'll be touching on things that the community can do to see if they can get those things addressed. Miscellaneous, one person said that they just really wish that they knew their neighbors better. Again, now that the lockdowns are starting to are coming down, that there are a lot of people that are looking to do some traveling, but they don't really know anyone that could look after their place when they're gone. So that's another thing that's very important, is that if you can start looking to your neighbors and sort of working together to keep your streets safe and the community safe. One other person said the big problem with being in Fairview, of course, is that it's next door to Acadia, and that's where all the trouble comes from. So I found that to be a little amusing, and we'll be taking a look at statistics for that. When we take a look at the crime activity, now these graphs look a little unusual. The most recent activity is in the left-hand column, that's April of 2021. And then on the far right of the chart is the 12-month total. So what we see is something that matches pretty much 100% with the perception, what we see in the community, with break and enter other premises and thefts from vehicle accounting for over 50% of the total crimes in the area. So having that understanding that what you guys are seeing out there and what your comments are saying is completely accurate to the situation, which is very good to see. The total crime activity in nearby communities, again, somebody really just Acadia is having the largest 12-month total with 278 incidents, and Fairview, again, looking pretty good at only 93 incidents over the last 12 months. So when we take a look at this, one of the key factors for this is that Acadia has a very, very large population. And so if we take that number of incidents divided by the population, we get a very, very low per person cases of incidents. And so it's actually very, very comparable to Fairview and Haysboro. So basically what we're looking at, the areas of Kingsland, Haysboro, Acadia, and Fairview, they're all experiencing not only the same amount of crime, but even the same kinds of crime. So we are seeing the garage break-ins, we are seeing the vehicle break-ins, we are seeing those sorts of things happening by people that are traveling throughout the cities and targeting various communities. And again, looking for that low-hanging fruit, that quick dollar, in order to again support their next fix. So the solutions that we also talked about, again, came down to about three things. One of them was more police. Can we have more police patrolling? One person's looking at the individual home security. So your house should have good lights and maybe get a large dog. But also just have a willingness to ask questions and get involved when you see suspicious activity. Now, I'm sure Constable Tyerman will talk more about how you can do this safely, and what and when areas like this should be approached. One person said that I think that residents need to be vigilant about locking their doors and also keeping an eye out for suspicious activity. And this is very important. One of the statistics in Marteloup, for example, in terms of all the vehicle riflings that were reported to police, 80% of the vehicles being rifled in Marteloup were vehicles that were left unlocked and unattended. So if we want to take a look at the reason that vehicle prowlings are so prevalent in our communities, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're leaving the doors open and we're not securing our vehicles or valuables. And so we need to really sort of take responsibility for that. And we'll talk about ways that this can be done. One person was wanting to have some tips on how to prevent criminal activity as a regular community member, how to be more involved. And with all the services, we have 911, we have the police non-emergency line, we have 311, we have Crime Stoppers. When do you call them? Who do you call? We'll be covering that as well. The other thing is that one person said that when you do call the non-emergency line, it feels like there's no follow-up. It's just like you put the report in and that's it. And there doesn't seem to be any visible action taken, and you don't seem to see the results. So it feels like that the Calgary Police Service and the City of Calgary just doesn't care about residential crime, and we'll be touching on that as well. So in terms of who you call, again, there is a very popular movie out, and this is the closest I could get to who you're going to call Ghostbusters. You'll have to excuse the poor attempt at a joke, but that's basically what we're going to go with, I guess. So we're going to talk about the four numbers that you can call: the emergency 911, the police non-emergency line, Calgary Citizen Services 311, and Crime Stoppers. So in these cases, each one is appropriate for a certain time to call. So the first one is one that's probably the most well-recognized, is the emergency 911. And you call it whenever there's immediate action required. So if someone's health, safety, or property is in jeopardy, or a crime is in progress. You can also use this to report dangerous driving. One of the ideas that a person in the community came up with in order to deal with speeding in their neighborhood was getting 5 or 6 people in lawn chairs, and basically every time there's a speeding car, they'd have binoculars, get the license plate number, call 911, and report it. I didn't say it was a particularly good idea, but that is one of those things, is that if you do see dangerous driving, that's one of the things that you can do. It's also very important, especially if you see people that are driving drunk as well, which is also a major concern. So now what's very important is that this is, if something is immediately occurring, this is what you would call. If you were to, let's say, come home from work and your house has been broken into, or you wake up in the morning and you come out and your car has been rifled, then you'd call the police non-emergency line. And the best thing to do is to call sort of outside the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. time frame and get the report in. And when you do call, make sure that you have a pen and paper handy, because this will be very, very important, because this will be touching into the next part of the presentation, is always get a case number for when this happens. So, but when you do this, make sure that you have your exact address, your driver's license number or vehicle license plate, whatever you need in order to report the incident. The third number is the 311. And so these are cases which I would all call sort of environmental issues. So things like sidewalk, road repairs, damaged traffic signals, road signs. If there are no noise complaints, if there's a dangerous animal complaint, If you come across graffiti, this is a place where you should be able to report it and have it taken care of. What I find one community does is that if there's one place where where they feel that an intersection is unsafe, a group of people would get together and basically 5 or 6 of them would simultaneously call 311 for that dangerous intersection. And in that case, it builds up enough of an incident profile for the 311 to give it an increased priority in terms of getting things fixed. So that's something how a community association, a community or group of people can go to make their community safer as well. There's this newfangled thing called social media. And I'd like to just touch on a couple of the ideas. One of them is Lightcatch. It's a free app. And the other one is bikeindex.org. So the first one, Lightcatch, Darren Boyer lives in Grand Prairie. And what he's done is he's created a free app which you can download to your Android phone or your iPhone. And what you do is you download the app, you would set the radius of where you'd like to receive notifications. And what happens is that in addition to contacting the police, you post your whatever incident on the Lightcatch app. And what's beautiful about this is that you can put in text, you can put in video, and you can also put in pictures. So this is one case that actually happened today. It was reported at 9 p.m. in the evening that their vehicle was stolen at 2 o'clock that morning. And so the person would go on, they'd talk about what had happened, they'd have pictures, they'd also have the case number from the police. Then everyone else who had the Lightcatch app would receive this notification. And if, let's say, you were living on the same block and happened to have a security camera pointing at the street, you could go check your security footage. And if you saw something, you could respond to this incident, and it would start to amalgamate or crowdsource all the incident information into this one thing that the police could then use to, if there's enough evidence that's collected, would facilitate an arrest. Again, Darren is from rural Alberta, and a lot of what he does is done from a rural perspective, but this gives you an idea of what happens. So in this case, a vehicle was stolen in Calgary and then driven to Red Deer and all the way up to Edmonton. And every time he stopped, somebody with a Lightcatch app basically posted, "Hey, I saw your truck on the highway number 2 heading north," or "I saw it in Red Deer." And they ended up catching the guy and recovered the vehicle up near Edmonton. So in a rural setting, it works extremely well. And the challenge for us is, can this kind of system work in, let's say, for the community of Fairview? So for every time that a vehicle gets rifled, every time a garage door, every time that there's suspicious activity, if it's a non-emergency, the 266-1234 number, and then post it to the Lightcatch app, notify everyone in the community, hey, there's people checking door handles, it would let everyone know. So again, if you're the victim, you call the police and you get that all-important case number, because the case number will collect all the evidence from all these different locations and enable the police to assess it and move forward with either an arrest or a further investigation. And again, then if you receive the notification, then the expectation is that you'll go in immediately, as soon as you get the notification, check the details of the incident, find out if you were in the area at the time, if you have security footage, let's say, if you're an early morning jogger and did you see something at that time, you might say, hey, I remember they were heading in this direction, or I caught a glimpse of the person who was wearing a jacket. And then what you do is then you contact the police non-emergency line, you quote the case number from the Lightcatch app and saying, hey, this is what I've seen. And then, so by amalgamating all this data together in the same area, these perpetrators can be tracked in real time, and it does facilitate the capture and gets the stolen items recovered. And so, is this something that works in a rural area? Can we make this work in an urban area? What I like about this application, though, is that if we take a look at our current state, right now, the individual citizen and the community basically have the responsibility for prevention, i.e. locking their stuff up, having a security camera, having good lights, making sure that they don't have any valuables on display in their vehicles, and if something happens, to report the incident. However, the investigation, the collation of data, the arresting of the suspect and laying the charges is all in the police's hands. One of the comments that was made was, it kind of seems that you call the non-emergency number, you put in the incident into the police, and nothing seems to happen. Well, in this case, in addition to that, if you posted a light catch, then they would be the individuals in the community that would be taking care of the prevention, the report incident, but also almost a crowdsourced investigation and collation of data. And once that's sort of done, then the police can sort of step in order to make the arrest and lay charges. So how this would work with your community association, again, if we can get the community association to recruit 20 or 30 people to download and use the free app, and have the community association sort of educate you on how to create the alerts from your security footage, what to do when you receive an alert, and also how to secure your property, what are the best security cameras to have, those sorts of things. And then the committee would also receive reports from Lightcatch on how the system is operating, how many users there are, and in general, what kind of crimes are happening in the community. And by creating this network of instant responses to incidents, the community creates the ability to quickly track and catch perpetrators. So how this might work in our community is, let's take vehicle break-ins. Again, #1 crime in the community. And it's probably higher because if people have someone that's broken in and rifled the vehicle but nothing was stolen, they probably don't report it. And if that's the case, even if they did not report it to the police but did report it on the Lightcatch app, it would basically alert everyone in the community that this was happening in real time. So, and because we know that perpetrators basically blanket an area checking door handles, it's a way of hardening the community against these kinds of attacks. We know that they're looking for easy money, and if we make it hard for them to get it, they're going to look to other communities and easier pickings. And if this is something that we can continue on time, then the community will develop a reputation amongst that group of people that Fairview it's not economically rewarding to go to Fairview to try breaking into vehicles or garages. It's too easy to get caught, and it basically, as soon as we show up, suddenly everything is locked and everyone's out of their houses looking for suspicious activity. So in this case, let's say if a Lightcatch member, let's say if we had all these people in the red dots were members of Lightcatch, and suddenly one of them had their car rifled and they walked out early in the morning and noticed, then suddenly everybody in the community notices. And I don't know about you, but if I received notification that somebody was getting the car rifled, I would immediately go out to my car and lock the doors. And again, if the statistics are the same as Marta Loop, where 80% of the people have their vehicles unlocked, this would go a long way to hardening the community against these kinds of attacks. And so everyone would go out and do that. And then also people with security systems, they will check their footage and see if they can identify the culprits. And if you think about it, if you have your own individual security system, the most you can ever see is your block. However, through the Lightcatch app, it networks all the security systems in the community together, and to the point where if somebody tries to perpetrate a crime in the community, there's an excellent chance that that person would be caught and tracked right through the community and would enable the police to find them. Not to mention that when something does come up, people will immediately come out and start looking for and reporting suspicious activity. So that also hardens the community against this kind of attack. And then again, the evidence is collated and collected according to the case number. Again, all important that when you do make your report, do get that case number, do place it on the Light Catch app, and that increases the chances of arrest. The other social media site I'd like to give a shout out to is bikeindex.org. Probably the #1 stolen item in Calgary are bicycles. Because of the lockdown, a lot of people have decided to get into bicycling as a way of staying in shape. And what you do is that with your bicycle, if you register it, then anyone that buys a bike from a different city anywhere in the world can go in, put in the serial number of that bike, and that would show up, and you'd be able to find out pretty much immediately whether or not that bike has been stolen. And this is a snapshot of their front page, which I took back in March of 2021, where they say over $13 million worth of bikes have been recovered. Yesterday I took a snap of the same shot. It's now 14.7 million. So basically over the course of a few months, over $1 million worth of bicycles have been returned to their owners. So very effective. And again, very simple, very easy, something that's free that helps make our community better. I'd like this time, I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to introduce Michelle Stensrud, the director of the Fairview Community Association, to make some comments. Michelle, over to you.
Hi, sorry, I don't know how to use a computer very well.
Hey.
Okay. It's really windy over here, guys. So I just want to say I'm Michelle. I've been a board member for a year, just about. I've lived in Fairview for about 7 years. I went to the junior high, and absolutely, honestly, guys, I did not want to move here. I couldn't stand Fairview, but now I'm in love, so that's nice. I'm on the safety committee, and of course, I'm looking for some members. So if you're interested, and Terry, I think maybe you might be interested, let me know. You can email me. You can come over to my house. I live on Lower Flavel, and we can chat. But I'd like to say thanks to Mark and Constable Jake for doing this presentation for us. It's really very nice of them and helpful for us. So I just wanted to say, like, good neighbors look out for each other. They're great. Like, here's my neighbor here. He came over. Yeah, so we look out for everybody on our street for sure, because we are seeing each other all the time, but all through the neighborhood, not just on crime stuff, but in every capacity. It's great to know your neighbors. Communication is key for safe, crime, minimal neighborhoods. Social media is really a good way to get to know your neighbors if you can't get out to see them because of pandemics or whatever other odd reason might happen. And that helps our community safer. So a couple things that you can do, I guess. You can join the Fairview Community Facebook group. You can follow us on Instagram. This is embarrassing. I don't know if we have a Twitter, because I don't have it, but Liz might know the answer to that. Yeah, you can join any of the apps that Mark has just suggested. The bike one I think is great, brilliant. But the social medias, they give a lot of awareness to the community members about lost and found items, lost pets, prowlers, bike thieves, puzzle exchanges, like anything that you would maybe want to talk to a friend or a neighbor or a person about, we can do on social media. And yeah, so if you want to join the committee, definitely let me know. If you want to just chat about, I don't know, cars speeding down your road or cars doing U-turns at the schools or anything like that. I love talking about cars and how awful they are. So yeah, that's about it. So thanks, guys.
To take this opportunity to introduce Constable Jake Darman to make some comments in the presentation.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for everybody being here tonight. I'll start off. I'm going to do a bit of a presentation, then I'll go over a few stats, and then I've written down some of the concerns you brought up in the opening remarks, and I'll try and address as many of those as I can. Some of the material here are going to address some of your questions. So we'll go through this quickly and then get you back to your evening. So I am Community Resource Officer for 6-1, which includes Fairview, Haysboro, Chinook Park, Eagle Ridge, Kelvin Grove, and Kingsland. And I started there in November of 2018, I believe, 2.5 years now, 2019 maybe. Time flies when you're having fun. Hold on, I still need to share my screen, don't I? Am I shared right now, Mark?
No, you're not. There we go.
And so one of the, I get asked to do a lot of different presentations at different either board meetings or AGMs, and one of the ones, or even just seniors groups or anything, one of the ones that I like to talk about is being an effective witness. This is key for providing information to police that is usable in terms of apprehending offenders, and also helps us further our investigation by having good information. As different people respond to different situations depending on stress or things that go on, and sometimes information, perception of what they saw or heard or happened changes, and two people, as you know, can see the same thing and see things very differently. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So first thing, when you're calling in to either 911 or the non-emergency line, is to talk about provided an accurate location. Obviously, if you're in your own community, providing an address is pretty easy because you're familiar with the area. If you're not familiar with that area, try and look for some street signs, intersection signs, obviously on the side of this, at every corner. Use your phone if possible for maps. You can use landmarks. For example, you could say, Heritage Park or Glenmore Landing, or the Porsche dealership on Blackfoot. Those landmarks are good, even if you don't know the roads. Try it. It helps us if you kind of know, I'm north or south or east or west of this location. We can usually track you down. One other trick is if you're in a community, you really don't know where you are. Like some communities, like Tuscany is a crazy community. I never know where I am in Tuscany. You can give a license plate. Typically people register their cars to the location. If you gave a license plate of a car parked on the street, we could reverse that and find an address. So that helps. So next one is just thinking about offender description. So if you see an offense taking place, to get that good picture of the description of the person. So, and focus on something specific or something that stands out. Obviously, sex is good, ethnicity is good. Clothing description can be really great. Any specifics about their jackets or pants or something that stands out, the shoes. If they're wearing Chicago Bulls jersey, or they're wearing a bright yellow hoodie. Those things really help us when we're coming in and we might be doing tracks on people with canine or even with the helicopter. Anything that stands out. Are they wearing a hat? Do they have long hair? Do they have short hair? You know, are they 7 feet tall or 4 feet tall? All of those things are important. If you can pick something out like that. Carrying any weapons or tools, that's something we always like to know. It drives our tactics on how we approach people. And try and get a last direction of travel. So without becoming involved in an offender and who's committing an offense, try to, you know, where's the last place I saw them? I saw them running westbound on 78th Avenue from Fairmount Drive. And that last point of loss is really helpful, particularly for if we can get the canine units out, they're going to be their starting point to do a track. Vehicles are important as well. Quite often criminals who are committing a lot of this nuisance crime that you're experiencing will use a vehicle, particularly a stolen vehicle, or have a vehicle with a stolen license plate. But it's important to even get a make or model of the vehicle. Some people aren't very good at that, but focus in on that badge of that vehicle. Is it a Honda? Is it an Audi? Is it a Chevy? What color is it? Is it an older model? Is it a late model? Is there anything distinctive about it? You know, do you see a bumper sticker or some sort of sticker in the back window? Are there roof racks or a topper? Aftermarket mufflers? Or also, is there anything that's just stock about it? Even just that helps us know that we can rule out a car that's really tricked out versus one that's just stock. So, and again, the same thing applies for vehicles. Direction of travel is important when you're reporting, and the last point of loss, where you last saw that vehicle, and it gives us a time frame, especially if the helicopter is coming in. How much time and how far out should we be looking for that vehicle? So those are kind of a few points on that. I kind of blew through that quickly, but wanted to get on to my version of crime stats, and I know Mark shows some. I tend to look at them a little bit different, and just it kind of gives a little bit of perspective. I do my numbers for these presentations in terms of monthly averages year over year. So you see I've got 2019 through 2021 here, and it kind of shows how I can track trends that are going up on a monthly basis, and then we can focus in on some targets or look for some offenders that are possibly committing these acts. So if you look at stolen vehicles in Fairview, you're looking at about that 1 to 2 a month. So it's not off the charts for sure. It is, if you Haysboro has quite a bit higher population. They're kind of in that 2 to 3 range, and Kingsland at one point back in 2019 was really bad, almost 5 a month. So, but we've seen a downward trend in most of the communities over this year. Part of it with COVID was a lot of people were home. We did have some issues over in Kingsland with drugs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But, well, I can speak to it now. This kind of crime, stolen vehicles, car prowlings, garage break-and-enters, yard prowlings, these are driven by drugs and drug addicted, and that is the challenge. So my strategy for reducing this nuisance crime in your communities is to target drug activity. We've had quite a bit of success in Kingsland. since I came in. If you notice, these numbers have dropped because we just got rid of the people who are selling drugs. What happens is the drug addicted who are panhandling, who are out on the street, who are setting up homeless camps in your community, they are setting those up in proximity to where there's access to drugs. So they're using the ability to either gain property or money to convert to drugs. And so if we can eliminate the supply of drugs, they typically move somewhere else. So that's kind of where that. So stolen auto, one to two a month in Fairview. So it's not crazy, but it's certainly a concern. Break and enters to dwelling houses is really low, and we kind of break down break and enters between the houses, other buildings, and commercial. So your other buildings are going to be your garage, if it's a detached garage, or an attached garage. And so if you look at Fairview, you're 0.2 a month for actual break and enters to a dwelling house. Break and enters to a dwelling house, actually, in all the communities that I deal with, are very, very low. It doesn't happen that often. And 0.2 a month, that's almost non-existent. So break and enters to other ones, this is where it's a little bit higher. So these are your garages, sheds, other buildings like that. And Fairview's actually got improved in 2020. We're looking at 0.4. So that's about one every 2 months. Last year in 2020 we were about 2 a month. So things are on a downward trend, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then commercial's pretty low again, almost non-existent in Fairview because there's not a ton of commercial in Fairview proper. Fairview industrial, if you count in the industrial, it's a bit higher. We had an anomaly last month where there was about 3 break and enters in May in Fairview industrial and about 4 stolen vehicles actually in Fairview industrial just last month. So I'm going to take a closer look at that and see what's going on there. And part of this too, which is kind of separate from the community, these break and enters for Fairview industrial also factor in the Fisher Street area, which is on the McLeod corridor, which is typically far away from where you are. So those numbers are they're almost separate from where you are. So car prowling. So if we go to car prowling now, you're down to about 1.5 a month right now. 2019, we're about 4, between 4 and 5 a month. Compared to other communities, you're actually quite low. Considering Haysboro, when I first came into this role in 2019, they were on me right away. What are we doing about the car prowling? Because they were looking at 10 a month, and it was quite serious. We had a drop. It's picked up again in the last month, and but again, Kingsland's kind of my example of reducing drugs. We've dealt with a number of drug issues in Kingsland, and you see that drop. The factors also that come into play are the LRT. The Chinook LRT is a big issue, and obviously you have proximity to that. We have a lot of drugs going through there and a lot of people who are homeless or addicted hanging out at Chinook LRT. And so they then, for trying to gain money for whatever they need, they are moving out into the community, and yours is one of the closest, obviously, to that. So you're going to see, with that going on, you're going to see some homeless camps set up, and you're going to see you're going to see car prowlings, and you're going to see some garage break and enters. And the important thing is when you have homeless camps or suspicious people in the area is to report it to us. If someone's not actively committing an offense, if they're just camped out, that would be a non-emergency number call, 266-1234. However, if you have somebody who's going through yards, they're looking in cars or pulling car door handles, that's a 911 call, and we'll come and try and track that person down. So reporting it to us is important. Here's my contact information. My email's on there and my landline at work. I do respond to both, so feel free to get in touch with me. And I typically, and that being said, summer is coming up, and I haven't been able to take holidays in 14 months. So I do have a lot of time booked off this summer. So I may be not as quick to respond. So that's my one caveat. So then, yeah, over to you, Mark, and I can address some of the things I wrote down. If you'd like, I can do that now.
Please do so.
So some of the things I got from the opening, so pedestrian safety and speeding, that's something we can easily address. You can call 311 and make, or also I believe you can go on the calgarypolice.ca website and make a traffic service request. This is a request that comes to our traffic section. It also comes to me directly, and it's just a request for enforcement, and you can give specific locations. We will come out and we will do some laser or some sort of checks on vehicles and do some enforcement. So certainly that can be done. That's probably the most effective way. Some other communities have tried to do some traffic calming studies, and it's been very difficult with the city to get those pushed through. There's quite a few hoops to jump through, but I think the best thing is to do those traffic safety requests, and we'll go out and hammer some tickets. But don't blame me if you get one of them. So crime prevention, I know Mohammed talked about crime prevention in the community, and as well as hate crime stuff. I'll talk about the crime prevention stuff first. And this will cover off on some of the other questions. Your home, I like to tell people your home is your castle. So make it as inaccessible as possible. So good fences, good gates, good locks. Lighting is important. Nowadays, with some of the outdoor LED lights, they're inexpensive. I bought a bunch off of Costco. They have photo cells. They're on all the time, but they come on at dusk and they turn off in the morning. So my house is lit up all night, and I think that's important. Make sure you light it up as much as possible. Alleyways as well. We've talked to other communities who complain about crimes coming off the alleys, and they wanted the city to put in street lights in the alleys, and that was just cost prohibitive because they were going to pass a lot of that cost on the community association. The easy solution is if you have a garage and you want to put lighting on it, please do. And if everybody has a light on the back of their garage, then the whole alley will be lit up in that house. Good locks on your doors is important. A lot of times we find poor locks, particularly on the garages, that are easy to be pried, or there may be a window in the door to the garage which can easily be broken. Reinforce those locks, make it difficult for someone to get in, and that'll be a big help. Lock your sheds in your yard, lock your gates if you can. Cameras, I'll talk a little bit about cameras. A lot of people have monitored alarm systems. There is a benefit to those. For some people, they're cost prohibitive. the upside is that your system is monitored all the time, and you might have other benefits like fire detection or carbon monoxide detection or other particular things, or maybe even flooding protection. Again, the downside is the cost. There's also the response time for police is not super fast, because typically the alarm company tries to call you, the homeowner, first, and then if they can't get a hold of you, then they call dispatch, and then that takes about, we're looking at about 20 minutes before the call is even dispatched out to police, and then our response time is based on what's going on in the house. So, you're looking at about a 20 to 30 minute response time probably from a monitored alarm system. The other option is a non-monitored one. I know a lot of different companies like Nest or Eufy, or some of the Ring is the Amazon's one, or some of them have a small subscription, but you can get some really high quality cameras. They record to either a cloud or to a hub inside your house, or some of them are non-subscription. I know the Eufy one is a non-subscription, it's free. You just have to buy the cameras up front, but for $300, maybe $300 or $400, you could have a pretty robust system, and you get your notifications right to your phone. And then the advantage for that is if you see somebody in your yard or in your house, or they're trying to break in, and then you can call us directly, 911, and the response time is going to be probably a half or a quarter of what the other system would be. The disadvantage is you might miss the notification on your phone. So it's all up to you. They are very effective in us tracking down offenders, and it's much easier to get a conviction and description on people if we have them on camera. Otherwise, things like fingerprints or footprints or different things that are left behind at the scene, we'll try and get that stuff, but in my experience, it's hard to get that stuff, and many criminals are pretty wise about wearing gloves or different things. So cameras are a big thing nowadays. I think it was Ryan had a question about homeowners' rights in terms of protecting their life and property. The only thing I'll say to that is it's important to call the police, but if you are going to act to protect your life or property, I would recommend going to the criminal code and reviewing section 25, 34, and 35 of the criminal code. That's going to discuss your rights in terms of what you can do, what kind of force is available. And then I can't give you advice on what to do or not to do. You have to make that decision on your own. So, but those sections of the code will explain the lawful stuff. Graffiti is another one. I have been working with, had some long discussions with Sam Coots, who I believe is on your board in Fairview. And we've talked with bylaw about the incidents of graffiti all over. And some of these offenders actually are tagging similar tags all over the city. We don't currently in CPS have anyone working on graffiti. We did have one constable at one point, but that position has not been filled. Graffiti is a difficult one because we need almost to find the person committing the offense. I know there's a unique signature to a lot of the tags. I know people have talked about the happy tag that is all over. I've seen it all over the city. And it is very much a nuisance, and it is expensive to repair. Please involve bylaw in occurrences and involve me as well, particularly if it's something recent. So if for, at the school, if the school was clean and there's graffiti on it the next morning, then please let me know and report it to bylaw as well. Then we can start to track and look for cameras and see if we can catch somebody on camera committing the offense. It's really difficult. And if you find somebody committing an offense, spraying something, call 911, and we'll try and track them down and lay the appropriate charges. Okay, and when to call police is another one. 911 is used for when offenses are currently ongoing. So when an offense is taking place, or there's a suspicious offense, there's somebody suspicious in the area who you think is going to commit an offense, or if you're actively being attacked, call 911, obviously. It's the more exigent, immediate type stuff. If your car was prowled and nobody's around, it happened overnight sometime, or your garage was broken into, that can be reported on the non-emergency line. And then we'll follow up with you. And I'll speak a little bit. There were some complaints about follow-up on reporting it through the non-emergency line. CPS is trying to streamline some of the reporting in terms of doing more online reporting and doing some reporting through our non-emergency dispatch. And there are officers who are doing follow-up. There is a backlog to some degree of investigating. A lot of we were trying to move to this because of COVID, so we could have there's less chance of contact with people. But it's difficult because we are lacking in a certain amount of manpower to respond to all of the nuisance crime, and to get to it all. And I think that's where the community involvement is key in terms of using tools that you have, which we've talked about, the apps and social media available. Also the community aspect of getting to know your neighbor. Have your neighbor's number if you can. I know some neighbors don't get along, but if you do, have a cell phone number so you can text them. Hey, you left your garage open. Hey, make sure you close it. That's important. And then also securing your property. I'll bring up briefly the 9 p.m. routine. This is a promotion that CPS promoted. If you go on YouTube and just search for 9 p.m. routine, CPS has put out a couple videos on it. It specifically asks homeowners at about 9 o'clock, when you're kind of winding down for bed, to go out, make sure you remove valuables from your car, make sure it's locked, make sure your gates are closed, your overhead garage door is closed and locked, your lights are on, all of those things. So hopefully I addressed most of the things for questions, and I guess now we can just open it up to any other questions.
And with that, just going to check the chat for any final questions or comments. No, that looks to be it. So we're now at 5 minutes before the hour, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Michelle and Elizabeth from the Community Association for doing this. And I'd also like to thank Constable Jake Tyerman for his knowledge and everything about what's going on in the community. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thanks for having us.